All right. This is our first book of the month debrief discussion session. So we've already been having a little bit of chatter, but we're going to continue the conversation. The book this month was Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David. Michael and I were in Florida last week, and some of you may know this and some of you may not. We were at the conference that was held by Patrick Bet-David. So the 3 days that we were there, 4 days, however long it was essentially this book, but like really, in a comprehensive way, doing case studies and stuff like that. So yeah, so let's continue the discussion. Sonali, you were just talking about the fact that be geared more towards like entrepreneurs. Yeah, so that's a good question. So why do you think I selected this book for the team?
I'd say because you want us to explore a different role aside from our own. I also, if I can add, like I thought the book was very much like you could apply, like regardless of your role, you could apply it to yourself. Mm-hmm. There were some parts, like Sonali was saying, that were more towards the CEOs or the entrepreneurs rather than the intrapreneurs. But for the most part, I felt like the book was very well rounded to suit many different people inside of an organization, which I really liked.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I also, kind of to add to that point, I strongly felt that the book strike a good balance between people who are there, as I was telling earlier, people who are there, who are entrepreneurs, want to take it to the next level, versus the people who are not there yet. They are just dreaming. They are like passionate about what they are doing. They really want to work hard. Like this book strike that balance between, those two group of people. Yeah.
So what does it mean, do you think, to be an intrapreneur? Because they talk a lot about being an intrapreneur, right? So what does that mean?
So like going back to like just the fourth and fifth moves, like I feel like even as an entrepreneur, even though it's more geared towards the CEOs, I feel if you just step out for a bit, you can still apply those things. Like if you notice something in your role that you're doing that can be scaled further, even though you're not necessarily in charge of like scaling it, or it's not technically your responsibility, I feel like it's still good for us to like have that knowledge, even though we're not there yet. Like I certainly didn't mind reading it. So I feel like as an entrepreneur, that part was super helpful. Because then you can, like, a part of entrepreneur is like you do your job and you add more value and you're worried about the business and want to grow it. And I feel like the last 2 chapters would help you like take the tips given to the entrepreneurs, apply it to your role, and then give entrepreneurs like tips like, this is what we can do for our business from what I've noticed. So I feel it was pretty good.
One of the first things I ask during an interview with probably most of you would have heard this question that Michael and I ask, which is, what is your goal? Whether that's with us or not, what is your goal? And more often than not, the answer is around having some kind of impact, right? So for me, I know when I worked at other companies, and I was an intrapreneur where I worked, regardless of how big or small the company was, because I wanted to have an impact. But I've also worked at companies where you're kind of told like, you know what, don't worry about that. The big boys and gals will take care of that. You go sit in your corner and do your job, right? And there's nothing more annoying when you're working at a company than that feeling, right? Where it's like being told, oh, go over there. You can't handle it. You can't handle in the big leagues, right? So I think part of wanting us to read this book and talking about being an entrepreneur is essentially giving license to say, I'm empowering everyone on here. Whoever wants to raise their hand and become a leader, there's an opportunity, because we've been growing, and it's very rare that we are going to deny someone the opportunity to kind of flex their muscle and be good at what they do, right? So I think that is really what it means to me to be an entrepreneur, right? It's, what's your little, I used Roy as the example yesterday, right? It's like, Roy has his little booth at the marketplace, and people know that they can come over and it's like, hey, Roy, can you help me configure Salesforce? Can you help me with this thing? Can you help me with that? Like I use that example because it's a little bit more black and white in terms of the things that he can do, right? But all of us can be that, it's like, Matthias, I need you to help me with the kickoff video, right? That's not part of his role, but it's like his little booth is creating stuff like that, right? So I think the point that I'm trying to make is that crystallize in your head, or maybe even on pen and paper, like what being an entrepreneur means for you. What does your booth in the marketplace of CDIO look like, right? Because the more you can crystallize that and put that out there, the more others will know to be able to leverage that, and you become even more indispensable, and you can help the company generate more revenue or save expenses, right? And that's really what helps to grow the business, right? Roy, what do you? I want to hear what your thoughts are on being an entrepreneur, because you know, you've been here for a few months, and I know I don't want to speak for everyone, but I feel like there's a lot of value that comes from even just having a conversation with you. Not to completely float your boat, but
so reading through the book, I've always known that I'm not really like, I don't have an entrepreneurial spirit. Like I've never had the desire to like start my own business, or like, you know, like open up a lemonade stand or like anything like that. I always felt like, you know, I'm comfortable like working for somebody, and like I'm not interested in making like really critical decisions, because I think that would really stress me out. So I think like reading this book kind of reaffirmed that belief, and then also made me more comfortable in that realization too. And that, like, you know, you see a lot of, you know, motivational like talks, and like, oh yeah, you can be the president of the United States, you can you know, or you can like start your own business, do all this, like that's how you become successful. But like this book kind of like teaches you that you don't have to do that if that's not your personality. Like, and that's what's great about like the first chapter is like, know yourself, and like, and be truthful to yourself, and don't like create goals just because somebody else has those goals, right? Because if you're not gonna be happy if that's not who you are. So I really that kind of like hit home for me. So because then I was able to like yeah, like just understand that, you know, I don't have to be an entrepreneur to be successful. I could be an entrepreneur, and like, you know, specialize in those things. And then the things that I care not to worry about, like in terms like business things that I'm not particularly good at, you know, somebody else can handle that.
It's interesting you say that, because one thing that Patrick at the conference talks about, or has said a few times, is like, says, do you think the number 10 person at Facebook or Apple is unhappy and not completely loaded, right? Like, so that's I think that really hits home, because to your point, it's like, you don't want to have to worry about the things and the stresses that keep me up at night, right? And you don't have to, right? But as long as you know your part of the business and grow your part of the business, as we all do that, we'll all grow, and we'll all be stronger together, right? And we can still achieve all of our goals together, right? So it's a good thought. Any other thoughts in terms of? I actually had I just had a bit of a laugh though, Roy, when I was reading your book report, and you said, you know, reaffirms my belief that I'm not interested in becoming an entrepreneur. I kind of almost spit out my tea, because it's fine, but it's not, to your point, it's not like the common thing in the social sphere. It's like everyone, it's cool to be an entrepreneur or what have you, right? But it's, you know, it's also, I think it's cool to actually like know your lane and know your, you know, I was actually a really good entrepreneur. I didn't plan to become an entrepreneur, actually. I kind of fell into it by accident, and here we are, right? And I'm kind of have embraced it, right? So it's good to reaffirm the idea that you know who you are and what you want, and I can support that, you know.
I feel like it's also a really good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Erica.
It's okay. Oh,
I just no, go.
Erica, go ahead.
Okay, so this was my first time like getting to know the term intrapreneur, like learning it from the book. So that was really interesting. And just to like reiterate is that, yeah, I like the fact that, you know, you can be successful not just being like titled an entrepreneur. You don't have to like reach for that if that's not what you're comfortable with. And what I really like about the book and the first part of the book is that understanding yourself and like find like self-awareness and like getting to know yourself and like your mindset and like what drives you, what ticks you off, what you can use and take advantage of in order to become successful in your role in a certain company. And you can like you guys always reference, like, have your seat on the bus. Like everybody has their own seat, and like you just excel in that area, and then together we like push forward. Like we go forward on that bus. That's all it.
Good. Matthias?
I just wanted to add that I feel like for some people that, you know, they might feel like they don't want to be an entrepreneur or they can't be, starting as an entrepreneur would actually be a really good, I guess, I mean, becoming an entrepreneur first might actually help you become an entrepreneur in the future. Like it's a really good, I guess, step by step sort of thing. Because at this, the way I see it, and I feel like we've talked about this before, Riaz, like an entrepreneur kind of has the same mentality as an entrepreneur, just without the risk and without, like, obviously, I guess, less knowledge on certain things. But for the most part, they have the same mindset, right? They value the same values, the same, you know, they execute, they're very protective of the company and the values and all that stuff. So yeah.
Good. Jackie, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I was going to say that, well, first, just you've asked us several questions. I did not like the start just because I felt he's putting himself in he lets you think of him like he was a complete mess of a person. And I guess I didn't see I didn't like that start. I think I've read that start somewhere else. So I didn't enjoy that, but the way he tells the story and his story and just like Matthias was saying, how human it is, how straightforward it is. I felt almost as I was listening to the book. I didn't read it itself, but I see how he's very clear on his bullets and his ideas that I really enjoy that. And when talking about Intrapreneur, I read about that on an article on LinkedIn, and I really like that because I agree with some of you with that feeling of maybe I don't want to start my own business, at least not yet. My husband is always making fun of that. He's always like, you're always like giving ideas and all that. Maybe we can start something together. And I guess we could, but I guess I'm not there yet. But I do like that because I feel like an entrepreneur identifies problems and solves problems with the road, they take the road less traveled, and maybe there's answers out there, but you want to build your own and try to understand that problem and give solutions to it. And I've always thought of myself as a problem solver. I like that a lot, and I enjoy that, even if it takes takes time, and even if it's there's time. I mean, if it's stressful getting to that answer, but I enjoy that. And I do think that I like our mindset in general as a team. We're always trying to make things better in a different way. And yeah, I think that in finding that concept made me feel very comfortable. Like I really like that, thinking that I don't have to have my own company to bring new ideas and join a philosophy. And when you were saying, Riaz, why do you think I suggested this book? I think this also gives us a perspective from your side and what you're looking for. So we're really understanding what we're signing up for here. And sometimes, and I think I mentioned this to Sonali, and we talked about this, like, it was almost at some point, it was Riaz talking to us. Like I was listening to the book. So yeah, I think those are my thoughts so far. Yeah, and I love that concept. It made me feel very happy to find that that existed, because that I do find myself very comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's a lot of good points and good feedback, and I'll say a few things, which is, yeah, it's my hair and logo and my name and stuff, but at the end of the day, this is our business together, right? And I think obviously it's my hair and logo because I started as an independent person, and at that point, I didn't know who I wanted to be, right? For me, the idea of success was being a solopreneur and sitting on the beach, right? So, but eventually, I became more clear through the course of studying myself who I wanted to be, right? So this is our company. That's the way I look at it, right? And CDIO just, I guess, personifies that, right? It personifies the fact that it's all of us, right? And I think the second thing is that there's a lot of opportunities for, if someone comes to me and says, you know, this thing is going to make us, you know, 50K and it's 5,000, right? Like, you know, I'm going to listen to that, right? Or, you know, this problem over here is going to save us 100K a year. Like, I'm going to listen to that, right? So, you know, I think, you know, our new LinkedIn automation platform is a prime example of that, right? Where I kind of got my arm twisted a little bit and I said, okay, fine, go for it. And now not only are we doing very well on it, we've productized it for our clients as well. So that's an opportunity right there that can end up becoming $500,000 a year in revenue type thing, right? So those opportunities exist all over the business. Absolutely. Ileana, what are some of your thoughts?
Like more in general or for each question?
No, just in general.
Okay, yeah. In general, I think it's a really eye-opening book. Because like everyone has pointed out, like it really follows along like his story, and it talks about like things that he's experienced and other people who were facing issues and problems, and really how hard it really is to get from point A to point B. And I think just being able to truly understand, and how he's not like, he doesn't really sugarcoat it really either. He's like, it's hard, like it's really hard, like you have to go through so much pain, like, and it's going to help you grow so much, which like Jackie said, it sounds a lot like what you say as well. So I think it gave a really good like eye-opening experience to like what you had to do as well, like how you built from the ground up for City.io, and then like looking at where we are now and comparing it to like in the book. And it's really cool to see the similarities of the success in the book, comparing it to like a real life experience. I mean, it is real life, but like a real life experience that I get to witness personally. And I think that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about the book. And it felt like a conversation, not like a textbook. So those are some of the things that I really, really enjoyed about it.
Great. Other thoughts, Kane? What do you think? What were some of your takeaways?
Oh, I was muted, sorry. A lot of mine were pretty similar to what kind of Roy and Matthias said. Like, it was an easier book to read than most business books. Like, it actually had a story. It wasn't choppy. And I liked a lot of the diagrams too, like being on the sales side of things. You can definitely implement a lot of the stuff that's in this book on the sales side. And then also kind of learning that how you run things is very similar to some of the values that they propose in the book as well.
Good. Khalil?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's apparent that you've already read this book, because like some of the things that we do inside City.io, it was in the book, right? Like, so talking about good behind people's backs, taking the time to get the right hires and the right fits in there. My personal favorite part about the book was the personal audit, actually, because you might forget something, 90% of the book 4 months down the line, but you're probably not going to forget that personality audit. So that's something that you can take away and implement, and it's like, it has a tangible effect on your life, right? So that was my favorite part. I wish there were some more worksheets, because it was mastering the art of business strategy, right? So I think that would have helped, us take more tangible things away from the book. But yeah, I did like it. It was an inspirational story. And there's a lot of things that we're doing here.
Don't worry, there's lots of worksheets that we have.
Okay.
Michael and I got a new book. We got so there's things in here that we're able to like download and find, like especially the processing issues stuff, that processing issues template.
Yeah.
We actually rolled that out in January, and then it kind of fell apart. So one of the things that Michael and I have realized when we were gone is we don't need to reinvent things every single time we do it. We just need to keep things alive, right? And if I'm looking at my own blind spots, and right, that's some of our blind spots, right? Michael, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, my thought instantly was, Khalil, today's your lucky day, because I, for some reason, accidentally picked up 2 of these books when I was in Florida. So I've got this one that is absolutely filled with my notes, but I will send you my spare one, and then you've got all of the worksheets and everything you can work through.
We actually, with our ticket level, we got two each. So it's not.
Oh, is that what? Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I was like, oops, somehow I got 2. Okay.
There you go. So no, that's great. That's great. Michael, what were some of your thoughts on the book and obviously the conference? I'm sure like when you read the book and then you got to the conference, you're like, hey, this is like a 3-day version of the book, right?
Yeah, I was like, this is easy.
Yeah. So what were some of your takeaways from the conference and the book?
Right. Well, I'm going to start with I'm not going to read word for word what I wrote in my report, but I'm just going to go over the points because I've kind of organized it. So it's already been pointed out at this point. In fact, probably everything I point out has already been pointed out. But I pointed out here street learning. I love the fact that the guy, like when we were at the conference, Patrick, it's just, you can tell everything he's learned on the street. There's no university education there at all. The guy is literally like a street fighter, and has come up with systems and processes and hacks and just really based upon the fact that the guy's been playing defense and offense, and he's been pivoting all his life. Like the guy is just the ultimate street fighting wheeler dealer, right? And he looks it and he sounds it. But the interesting thing about it is that he actually manages to balance all of his analytical and his aggressive clout, his systemization of things, the processes, all of the formulas he's got. He balances that out with actually, I think, quite an impressive level of empathy. And his understanding of the human condition is really impressive. Again, I think that comes from that street view. I think if you've come from a place where you've had to apply grit to your own life in order to get ahead, you do appreciate other human beings. And I like that balance. The other thing as well, Kane, I really, right at the end of the book, he was talking about selling from your gut. And I thought that was huge because I can really relate to that. So when I came out of catering, I started selling websites. I think everyone's heard the bloody story. I didn't know what I was selling. I didn't even know it was selling, Kane. There's no idea that I was selling. That's how clueless I was. But I was selling something that I believed in because the person I worked with, my wife, who is now my wife, she was a brilliant web designer. And she was just like, I'd be like, listen, I've got an idea. Can we do this? And she'd be like, of course we can. We can do anything you want. Really? Oh, but it'll cost. Oh, all right. So anything, I could come up with any solution to any problem because I knew that my wife could do it. So I was like, all day long. That level of belief that I had helped me to sell. So that was one of his big sort of lessons in the book, was that you're not born necessarily a salesperson. A lot of people think it's to do with gift of the gab, and here's me going on and on, but it's actually a lot to do with really believing in what you sell, and anybody can be successful at selling if they believe what they're doing. I'm going to quickly go through this stuff very quickly. Build speed by building trust. That's a big lesson that I've learned over the past sort of year since I've been working at CDIO. A year, Riaz.
I know.
A year.
I know.
So I've learned a lot in that time that I've been working with Riaz. One of the big things that I've kind of, a little voyage of discovery for me, is that, you know, building trust is massive. Obviously, it's about connecting with human beings in a really authentic kind of way, or you just really just get on with people. You just want to connect with them. And then that increases levels of trust and things get done a lot quicker. I think that I think that was just a great observation. Another thing that I really kind of related to as well was the underdog side of things. So he says, Goliath can't recruit the crazy and hungry people because the crazy ones are turned on by underdogs who aspire to take out a Goliath. They would much rather go up against Goliath than join him. That's all of you. That's every single one of you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I read that, I was like, that's our team. That's great. And I thought that was really cool. And accountability starts with me. This is something that I've learned that I will be applying, right? I'm planning to apply, or am currently applying. Accountability starts with me. I realized during the conference that if there was a situation where something might have gone a little bit astray, it might have been because, it's very likely it's because I hadn't really communicated exactly what was really required to begin with, or set a firm deadline, or set a firm expectation. So this is something that I recognize is on me. So that's something that I'm currently working on. The personal identity audit, Khalil, bang on, mate. I did that and it was shocking. I did it because it was our own work one night, and I had to phone Meg up, and I was like, or video caller, and I was like, how do people perceive me? I actually had I had never really stopped to think about. And so she helped me along with that. But then I started to think about all the other things to do with my personality, things that tick me off, things. And it was really, that was an incredible voyage of discovery, and it was actually inspired me to take action now. I've got the most amazing spreadsheet template that I've built this week. You wouldn't believe it. It's just amazing. And it's come about because of this. Totally inspired me, because I realized some pretty serious blind spots that I've been ignoring, and it came out of that. It came out of that accountability, the audit. Anyway.
No, these are all good points. They're all good points. It's funny to say, because one of the big blind spots that I noticed is me and Erica and I have a list of 80 different projects, but I'm always, the meeting with Erica comes in the calendar and I'm like, I can push that back. 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 Right. But then what happens is that list gets longer and longer and longer. And yeah, sure. Me and Matthias or me and Vas, we can have a quick chat and, hey, how's it going? You doing good? Good. I'm doing good too. Right. And a little bit of coaching, a little bit of lesson, or, Michael and I jump on a sales call. Of course, that's important, but because we got to make sales to keep going. So I think it's about, for me, the big blind spot is balancing the short term with the long term thinking, right? Because really, if Erica and I tackle a project that's gonna, be able to make, is going to increase or shorten the speed to making a sale, for example, then we're going to be able to make maybe 10 times the amount of sales in the same amount of time, instead of me reinventing over and over again, editing the same sales deck where half the team doesn't have the font, the other half doesn't know the pricing, some people don't know what's including which solutions. It's all in my head still, right? So I'm acting like a 2-person company, and now there's 20 of us in regards to that specific part of it, right? So there's a lot of those types of blind spots that I'm sure many of you on the call probably see. You'll dig into this folder on the drive and be like, man, that has been updated in a while. But this is where the entrepreneur part comes in, right? Where it's like, are you going to look at that and say, Riaz hasn't really updated that in the last 3 years? Or are you thinking, hey, you know what? Now I can be an entrepreneur for this area, because obviously there's some deficiencies here. So maybe I can become the reporting champion or the sales deck champion or the YouTube champion or whatever that looks like, right? And I think that was the big kind of thing that I realized that. So Erica and I spent how long today? An hour and a half. We were to spend an hour and a half, and we're going one by one, right? So I think it's important. I think the other thing that just to transition to the next part of the discussion, one thing that I really appreciate is this is on page 172. It talks about, in 1977, the fastest car went from 0 to 60 in 8.1 seconds, right? In 1997, the fastest car went from 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. In 2017, it was 2.9 seconds. So you can see it's dropping by almost half. And so then the question here is, how fast will the fastest car go from 0 to 60 in the year 2037, right? So when we think about our business and we think about, okay, how quickly are we pushing things out? And like I mentioned on the kickoff call yesterday, it's not about moving faster. It's about figuring out the right parts and methodology and the things. The car is still the same. The wheel, it's not going behind the wheel and moving the wheel faster, right? It's all of the things in the car that make the car go faster, right? So if we're the car as a team, what are the ways that we can accelerate, right? And then on page 174 and 175, it goes into, accelerating the functioning speed, the processing speed, expansion speed, and timing speed, right? So you'll hear us talking a lot about that. And in your area of the business, I want you to think about that as well. And then also the 7-step system to compress timeframes, right? Choose a process, list the steps of the process, remove a step, minimize the steps, beta test a new process, adapt the process, refine, right? Roy, I noticed that you put that on yours as well, right? So, these are things that it's not going to happen overnight, right? But what I don't want to do is 3 months from now, we're talking about, hey, how can we make things faster? And then we're trying to reinvent some next book, right? No, like this is what we're going with, right? And let's apply the methodology, because otherwise the whole book of the month and everything that we're doing in terms of our own development is going to be a waste of time, right? So this time we're doing it right. We're not letting things die out, right? So yeah, so let's move on to the second part, which is, what I learned, right? Because we had some general thoughts. So maybe we can talk about what I learned. So who wants to jump in with what they learned from your next 5 moves? V?
All right. What the biggest thing, like I guess the most impactful chapter was the processing, because like I really liked the beginning. Like I really liked how it began, and if that would be my favorite part. But in terms of learning, like the third chapter, like the third move was like really powerful, because everyone wants to be good at processing issues. Everyone wants to like process things faster, put it aside and move on to the next thing. Because like in my role, I have to do that a lot. Like if one client's account is not going great, like I need to let it go and go on to the next one. But then there was no like playbook on it. Like there's no list that I can read on how to do that better. But this book actually provided me with like, this is how you can process issues faster. These are the steps you can take. And if an issue arises, the biggest game changer to me was what Michael said, like the taking responsibility, because then you feel that you're in control of that problem. Because if something goes wrong, like if you blame others, like it's not good, but also it's like you feel like if I feel something is Ileana's fault, I cannot control it, because in my head I'm like, well, it was her fault, like what can I do? But if I say no, it was my fault, then I suddenly have control over the problem. Like I can try to figure out a solution because I created the problem. And another thing he said in the same point was, use your frustration about that mistake to fuel the solution that you're coming up with. So if there's a problem, the more frustrated I am, the more I can channel that energy into like fixing it. And there were a lot of these small nuggets like in that processing issues chapter, which were really like game changing for me, because nobody really teaches you how to like process issues better, how to compartmentalize things, and like practical tips that you can apply. And another thing that he said is like, it's not going to happen instantly. Like a lot of people read a book and they say, this book changed my life. But he said, no, this will not change your life unless you do it consistently. So that's why I made it a point to like pick a few things that I really liked, especially on the processing side, and then apply them consistently. I'll open my list. And yeah, like the 3 things that I listed were the processing issues part. So all the lessons I learned from that part, like the responsibility, and the next one was positive pressure. So I used to think like we have an amazing culture and like there's not much we can improve, but that book actually like opened like a lot more other things, like the friction and challenging people. Like we are very nice, so we don't really like try to challenge much. You pointed that out, but I really like that part, so I'm going to try to apply that as well. Like I like you, but we can do better on this one thing, something like that.
This is a really important point, because, and Michael and I were talking about this when we were walking on the beach. Sorry, not to rub that in, but when we were walking on the beach, we were talking about this, which we were saying, like we're too nicey with each other sometimes. And it's just because we challenge each other, it doesn't mean that we all of a sudden dislike each other. Like I think there's an kind of inherent, like we feel like we like each other. We almost want to like make sure that we keep everyone happy, right? But a client is not going to tell us that we're necessarily doing something wrong. They're just going to cancel, right? So it's important for us to call out each other's blind spots and have healthy debate around some of the issues that we face, right? So with the new Monday kind of huddle / training that we're going to be doing, it is going to be a lot around healthy debate around processing issues, right? Because that needs to become a part of our culture. Otherwise, we're just going to stay stagnant, right? So I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes we're like a bit tiptoey around, like I don't want to say the wrong thing, or Jackie might hate me, and it's like, no. First of all, Jackie would never hate anyone, right? And secondly, sometimes Jackie, she'll be the first one to tell you she probably needs some advice and some guidance, just like everyone else, right? So I think I think it's important that we move towards that type of culture where we can still be nicey, but sometimes we say, you know, Erica, maybe that column isn't the right column, or I don't know, whatever the challenge is that day.
And sorry, I know Vasily has not finished, but I'll always remember, Michael, when it was one of the first reports, and it was like half hour before the meeting with the client, and Michael was like, Jackie, you cannot present that because of this and this and this and this. And the reason that meeting went well is because Michael pointed that out. So I was able to adjust it and give it another perspective, and Brent was happy with it. And that's why the meeting went well. So definitely point it out, even if last minute, it's worth pointing it out. So it's not the client, like you're saying, it's not the client telling us, what's going on here? Like, why did you do that? Like, it doesn't make sense or anything like that. Like, him getting worried. So I'll always remember that. It's very helpful.
It's a safe space, right? Like, you know, we can critique each other, and we know that it's a safe space, and so it's important that we do that. And just because someone challenges you, it doesn't mean you should blindly accept whatever they're challenging you on either, right? Like, it's important that you understand your position, maybe push back in the areas that you think, but also be open-minded too. So it's about finding that balance, right? Being nice, having a backbone at the same time, right? So Matthias, you had a thought?
Yeah, well, I feel like those moments are actually extremely beneficial. Like those moments stick with you, you know, and it's so important. Like there have been times where I get told like we can't do that, or certain things with design, and like I'll never do them again because I just remember that, right? Like never make the same mistake twice. So it's like I think incorporating that into our culture will be super beneficial. He talks a lot about compassion and how like treating others like we're all human beings. We're all dealing with our own personal lives and all those really important things. And I think we all do a really good job at that. So I think it's just finding that balance between continuing to work together with that compassion and also challenging each other and helping each other grow. I really like that part of the book for sure.
Definitely. Good. Vasily, did you have any other lessons you want to share?
Yeah, just like the last one where he talks a lot about shadowing people, and he says like in every position it should be like looking toward, like looking upwards, trying to like improve. And obviously like there's like even if there's no direct role about DS, like a senior DS or something like that, but like I can look to other roles. So that's also something I want to implement, like just other qualities that I can pick up that would be helpful for my role.
Good. Roy, what were some of the lessons that you learned?
Yeah, just to echo Vasily's point about processing, I think that particular chapter was really helpful in understanding. In particular, there was a really good section on the 8 traits. What is it? So yeah, 8 traits of great processors. Ask a lot of questions, don't care about being right or wrong, only interested in the truth. Don't make excuses, like to be challenged, they're curious, prevent more problems than they solve, which is like, it seems obvious, but like, yeah, definitely people who aren't great processors can actually cause more problems. Use logic to find a win for all parties involved, and more interested in permanently solving problems than putting a band-aid on it. I thought those were great points. And I think and then goes to like the sort of the idea of like finding great people, right? So like, and when it comes to like an interview process, is the person that you're talking to, are they a good processor? Because good processors are what's going to make your team better, rather than like creating more problems than solving. I think that was a really key point. I really enjoyed that section of it. Yeah, other lessons, it's kind of like little tidbits that come up here and there, like things like I like the idea of like not judging the entrepreneur by the final product. And I think the anecdote was Elon Musk. You don't, you see the final product of this like amazing entrepreneur, like with SpaceX and Tesla and all of his other ventures, but you don't see the heartache and the pressures and like the stress and the anxiety that he would have gone through to get to that point. I think that's a good reminder of like what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and like understand the that it is difficult and it's not something that just happens overnight.
It's a good point, because there are situations that I have faced that you probably could never even fathom.
Yeah.
Right. That have to do with just the most random, out of the park type notions. Right. And every day I'm learning, and every day we're all learning. Right. So I think it's important that, I can go into one meeting and be giving someone bad news, and in the next meeting having to celebrate something for someone. Right. And it's hard to compartmentalize those things. You have to learn how to compartmentalize those things, right? Because otherwise, if I'm all down about something and then I come into the next meeting and it's and it's like you can tell people have good BS radar, right? So they can tell if you're genuinely happy or excited about something, right? And I've had to do that a lot this last year, as you all know, right? Like there's been situations where I would have been finishing crying and then coming on and being like, okay guys, like we gotta like go get it, and like this thing for Cube, or this thing for Ad Puzzle, right? And getting all excited about it, right? So the impact that you have on other people, it's very important to understand that. But it comes with a lot of anxiety and stress, but it's very rewarding too once you get into a pattern of a regular cadence of knowing how to do that. And it's hard, but once you get there, it feels very rewarding, and it's good, right? And the best way is chapter 1, right? Like a section, move 1. You know yourself. Like right now, I can speak based on my core, because I'm not thinking about, oh my God, am I saying the right thing? Or am I saying, you know what I mean? Like I'm not having to put any kind of lens on it, because I can speak freely, because I know myself. I know my own strengths and my own deficiencies, right? And I'm very open about that, right? So if I'm deficient about something, I know that, the whole group's not like, what's Riaz? What's wrong with Riaz? Well, it's like, that's just how I am. And I want to be improving at all times, right? So I think, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that by knowing yourself, you can understand how to handle different situations, to the point there. Good. Thanks, Roy. Who wants to share some lessons? Erica, do you want to share some lessons?
So what I really liked about the book is that like the emphasis on, like you said, knowing yourself is the foundation of success. Like you have to really believe in what it is that you are doing, and then like being able to like use that to go to the next step. Like until you've passed that first stage, you can't really continue on and be successful in the other next moves. You have to like really take the time to like know yourself and like make sure this is what you believe in. And then there's like a constant cycle of like checking yourself and doing these self-analysis, because things could change and your goals could change. But like also, so a second point, which I liked about the book, is that there's like a huge focus on like people, because that is what is going to make the business, like our business, successful, is like the people. You can buy all the tools and the gadgets and like set up all these processes, but if you don't actually like are in the right mindset to like use them and use them properly and like believe in them, then it's not going to work. So it's like investing in like the right people, and like making sure that like your people are good and happy and like can do their work, and removing roadblocks, making sure that they can find their frying pan. I think that's really important. And like things like this, like the coaching and like the books, and to go back to your point about like why are we reading this book, it's like it's exposing us to like different areas of the business. Like I noticed like the next 3 books are like all different areas of the business that you might not be comfortable with or might not be familiar with, but it might be challenging for me to like read a particular book, but it like gives you a different perspective on that area of the business. And yeah, I think that's very beneficial in terms of like being an entrepreneur as well, because you can bring your experiences into that area and like kind of bring up new ideas and new ways to do things, where like if somebody who's been in that area for so long might be like have tunnel vision or whatnot. So yeah, there were a lot of like good like learnings here and there, and like I think the biggest takeaway is like getting to know yourself and like building, just building on that.
It's a lot of good points that you brought up there. I think the one that stands out for me is the people. Like, you know, there's something that there's a like kind of an unspoken similarity between all of us in a certain way, and I could probably try and figure out some adjectives, you know, sincerity or authenticity or what have you. But like, Michael knows this. I have one rule about hiring: I don't hire jerks. Like, there's no jerks allowed, right? Because the moment you think you know more than someone else, you know nothing at all, right? So it's that's, I guess that's the only real, like, we would rather bring in someone who may not have the as strong hard skills in their area, like, you know, someone who's let's just say the best person at content or performance or strategy or what have you, but they're a jerk, they're not welcome, right? We'd rather take someone who's you know, not a jerk and groom and develop them. Fortunately, we're in a scenario where we don't have to do that either. Like, you know, obviously we're all leveling up, but there's no jerks and we all know our craft, right? Which is great. And so, Erica, to your point, knowing the people, knowing yourself, and then also bring in the right people. And then I guess the other thing is, like I think when we started the book of the month, I don't know if it was you, Erica, or someone else, where they're like, well, I'm not in sales. So they're like, do I have to read the sales book? And like, I'm not in content. So do I need to read like the On Writing Well book? And it's like, well, we all have to read all of them, right? So it's good exposure to other areas of the business that you might not be aware of, because let's be honest, you know, being an entrepreneur applies to everyone. Sales, really, it actually does apply to everyone, because even if you're Matthias and you're creating a video, you got to sell everyone else on the video, right? You got to sell everyone on the strategy, or Roy has to sell us on the feature update, right? And so I had to sell my wife on somehow marrying me, right? So this is it, right? So there's elements in it, and even on the writing stuff, you know. So the diversity of topics is important. That's something we're gonna aim to continue with as well, which is having things that might not seem like a good fit for your role or even our business, but the lessons can be transferable there. All right. Who else? Matthias, you want to share some lessons?
Yeah. And I just wanted to say, like, I feel like, you know, in our lives, we tend to experience other people's point of views, whether it's in a movie or a TV show or music. But then when you think about your professional life, you always, for the most part, people tend to think about themselves like in their area. But I feel like it shouldn't be like that. I feel like it should be the same way how we experience different characters and different albums and different stuff like that in the workplace. You know, getting to know other people, what they do, put yourself in their shoes. I feel like it's super important. And one thing I took away was not underestimating like your ability to grow. When I look at myself, where I was when I started last year and where I am now, it's pretty significant. And I don't think anyone should ever, you know, feel like they're going too slow or, you know, they can't grow, because it definitely is possible. And it's just a matter of continuing to do that. Right. So that was a major takeaway, just continuing to grow.
It's funny because I think it was like in year, like say 2 of the business, right? And it was still me by myself. I think it was just one other, maybe Malik or someone. And someone says, "You're successful." I'm successful? Like, what do you mean? Like, you're successful. You're everywhere. You're all over social. You have all these clients. Things are going well. I'm like, I'm only 10% of where I want to be, right? Like, so I guess a couple things, which is, don't set your bar to success or, you know, achievement based on someone else's perception, right?
Yeah.
Because if you compare it to only the people then you know, then yeah, you may be doing better, right? But so there's that part of it. Even today, nowadays, I think Michael when we were at the conference, someone said, "Oh, since the last time your team, like the team's grown from 2 to 20 and you have all these clients and you're successful." I said, "I'm only 10% of where I want to be." Right? So as long as we maintain that idea that we're only 10% of where we want to be, right? Then there's always an upside. There's always an upside. There's room to grow, right? I'm a big proponent of like beginner's mentality and like not, if you reach your plateau, well, that's a mindset, right? If someone feels like they've reached their plateau, then, and that plateau could be a certain job title, it could be a certain pay threshold, it could be a certain, right? But we're all gonna keep growing if you believe that you can, right? And I think that's why it's important to have these types of conversations so that we don't like limit our scope of what we're capable of.
We've only just started, haven't we?
We have, right? I mean, look, like kind of going back to, I think it was Roy, you were using the Elon Musk example, right? The finished product, right? It's like, well, when are you a finished product, right? Because in Elon Musk's perspective, he might be like, I'm only 10% there, right? He might be just thinking I'm just getting started, right? So I guess it's all relative. And so I guess the important thing is know yourself and don't be limited by someone else's perspective, right? People might think I'm a ding dong when I say, oh yeah, we will provide world-class digital transformation, right? And it's like, well, let's be honest, you guys are like a small company in Ontario, let's be honest, right? And remote, right? So, but if you limit your belief to that and you say, okay, that's all we're capable of, then you're going to stay there, right? But if we say we will achieve world-class transformation, then we're striving towards that, and we're going to believe that in everything we do, right? And that vision will continue to evolve, right? And it'll attract other people who believe that vision too, right? So, yeah, it's important there. Matthias, other lessons you want to share?
Or that's really it. One thing that came to mind though was a famous speech from Matthew McConaughey. This was from like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. He said that he always looked up to himself in 5 years, and then when he got to that point, it was himself in another 5 years, and again. And I really took that to the heart. Like I just feel like you should always be striving to be better, and when you get there, again and again and again, it's a never-ending cycle. And I think there's a lot of fulfillment in that. And yeah,
it's great. It's great. I remember that line.
Okay.
Good. Other lessons?
I also believe that I'm a big believer also in giving yourself some credit and take certain time to say, yeah, I made it, and then moving forward. But I feel like there's people that don't even take that time to be grateful and say, hey, I made it. I'm glad for this. So that's also important. And I know we also celebrate, but not for too long, which is healthy. So yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, because it's like when Michael and I were in at the conference, like that was obviously a milestone because we spent 4 days together and we hadn't even seen each other. Like we'd seen each other once for like 5 minutes before that, right? So that was definitely a milestone. And there was a point where we were sitting at dinner being like, oh my God, like, we're all real people and we're all doing real things and we're impacting lives. And so to your point, Jackie, it's important to take a step back and say, oh my, like people trust us and we're getting these accolades and things, but then not getting too far ahead, right? So
I feel like giving yourself props is so important. And I read this thing the other day and I loved it. And it was basically, the place that you are in today is a product of what you did 3 to 5 years ago. And it's just so important that you look back at things that you did that you might not think about, but when you analyze it like that and where you are today and thinking like, oh, it's because I did that like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 5 years ago. It puts perspective into your life and it kind of gives it a bit of meaning, a bit of more meaning, So
I think that's why it's important to read books that are not in your field, right? Because it like plants those seeds to potentially grow down the line. So yeah, I agree, definitely agree.
Good. Other Khalil, some of your learnings?
Yeah, I have a couple. So the first one is if you're gonna lose, don't lose the lesson. So kind of breaking down, we're all gonna have, defeats when it comes to our work. So going back and breaking that down and seeing where we went wrong so that we don't repeat those steps going forward, I think is important. as well as, getting to the top of the mountain and enjoying that view when we do have our successes. I think that's a huge one. And that's something like that chess masters do, right? So what he said in here was every master, both in chess and business, learns more from studying the moves that led to defeat than to success. So, I mean, that's how a grandmaster got to his position. So I think it's important to reflect back and look at those. Another one was focus on what you can control. So your next moves, your daily effort, and your choices. When it comes to working out, they call that progressive overload. You don't just go up to the bar and slap on a 45-pound plate to each side. You have the 2.5 plates each week to progress for a reason. And I think, that's applicable to business and work as well. This was a powerful one that I really liked. So make a list of values and principles that you want to live by. I'm sure, like, I haven't done this before, and it's kind of eye-opening because we're on autopilot a lot of the time and we don't really go back and reflect on, what kind of values and principles we want to live by. We're just trying to coast by or keep our head above water or whatever it may be. And so I think it's important to touch base and actually do that personality audit to just see where we are and see our baseline. And then maybe we can look back and reflect on that later down the line once we've grown. So that's important. Another fact that I really liked was stay alert and paranoid. So the statistic that he had here was only 52 of the original companies from the S&P 500 from 1990 exist today. And with digital marketing being, an evolution, we're constantly having to, like you said, level up and learn new skills and tactics. And I think that's very relevant to digital marketing. So that was a big one for me. And then the last one was it must matter to you, because if it doesn't matter to you, then what's the point, right?
Good.
So, yeah.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, especially in our industry, right? Like things change so quickly. Like the team a year ago wouldn't be able to handle what we're doing today. And the team a year from now needs to be able to handle what you can handle 2 years from now. So we're always constantly needing to level up, especially on these platforms, and the style of how we write and the graphics that we use and the strategies that we implement and the platforms we use. Good. Sonali, do you want to share any lessons?
Hello, everybody, again. What can I add? So, like, as I was telling earlier, Riaz, like this book really, like the best part of this book is self-realization, analyzing your strength, and really the overall lesson I learned from this book. Of course, I can talk about the different points, but I really try to analyze how can I do my bit with accuracy, and literally that's my first lesson learned. Like, what can I do, or how can I do to kind of fulfill my responsibility with accuracy? Because like if you try to connect the dots, like we are talking about entrepreneurs and we are talking about intrapreneurs, but at the end of the day, we all are responsible for each other's success, right? And if we talk about like, and honestly, Riaz, like you can be like super successful, but at the end of the day, like a lot of your success depends on how we are taking responsibilities, right? Like
let me just clarify, 100% of my success depends on how this team performs.
So yeah, it's like understanding that are we doing our bit? And like, as much as I agree with Matthias when he said that it is beneficial to know about each other's role, but at the same time, I would say, and it's me, like my personal learning is, what can I do to kind of go above and beyond in my role, because then my role is linked to, say, Vasvi, Jonathan, and Jackie, and then from Vasvi, Jonathan, Jackie to Michael, and then from Michael to yours. So it's like an interlink, which kind of an overall learning for me. And then I literally my second learning is how to I literally treat, if I have to treat CDIO as my own company, as if I was the co-owner, just like Riaz, like how would I react, right? Like, will it hurt me the same way if we lose a client? Yes, it would. And we want to reach that stage. And how, like, I was like, why did I reach that stage? Why does it matter as much as it would matter to Riaz if we lose a client, because I guess it again goes back to the same culture we have developed in that company. We all are passionate about each other's responsibility, and like, it hurts all of us if we lose a client, and we all are happy if we win a client. So that is definitely there. And then third point is mastering the ability to reason. I think a lot of us kind of spoke about the same things, like mastering the ability to reason, but especially something on page number 58, I kind of underline is, it says, life is always happening. The way you respond is based on how you process issues. So that is something very, very important, especially in our role. Because like every time it's like ever changing, few things will change, few things will happen, but it's most importantly how we deal with it, how we kind of react to it. Are we going to try to, as we said, are we going to blame somebody else for what has happened, or we try to quickly find a reason, or we try to quickly find a solution as an entrepreneur over there? So those would be my learnings. I know most of my learnings would be like how I can self-develop, but I think it's all interlinked. If I kind of develop and like grow in my skills, then I think that way I can help the whole team as well. Yeah.
Definitely. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So before we move on to the last section of this chat, did anyone else want to share any lessons that I may have missed?
The one about it being envious. I love that one. With social media, usually we'll look at photos of other people and things, what they're doing, and we might feel envy. And I love the way he explained it is how and I have this on my report like this, and how it says ambition plus laziness results in envy. And I love that one because it's so true. If you feel envious, it means there's something you like that the person has or has achieved that you can work for. But if you're not willing to, it becomes like a negative feeling. So instead of empowering you and firing you up to say, oh, I can do this as well, or I can get to this point as well. So I love that one so much, just because envy seems to be a very curious feeling for me. I feel very curious about it. So just because of what makes people do. So yeah, I thought that was a great explanation.
Good. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, cool. So for the last part, we're going to talk about how we can apply the lessons that we've learned to CDIO and AdPuzzle and our organization. Yeah. So anyone want to tackle that? I'll kind of leave this open.
I can go. Like the first, I guess the most important thing I learned, like the responsibility part, that is like very applicable. Like I can really just go into a meeting, and if there's been a blunder, like I don't need to openly admit it, or if there's a problem, even if I don't have a meeting coming up, like if I accept that it was my fault and then try to take responsibility and then go from there to fix it, like that's something I recognize I could start applying like the day I read that chapter. So I've already been trying to do that. And the putting positive pressure, like a lot of the times I have to proof a campaign or proof creatives or some copy, and I try to be like really nice about it, which I still will. I won't like completely rip it apart, but like still putting my point across. Like if something has a problem, I need to still convey the same message, obviously not harshly, but being more direct about it, maybe like if I need to. Because if a problem, like if I'm not happy with one thing and it happens again, then it just means that I didn't communicate it properly the first time. So the second time I need to like be more direct, and that's something like I plan to do more.
Tone is always a good thing too. Like you can deliver bad news with the right tone. You know, I get on you'll know this, Vasvi. I get on a call, Vasvi. Come on, right? You know what that means. You know that means I'm about to dig in, right? I'm about to dig in, but you can still do it with a smile on your face, lesson learned, and then we move on, right? So just because we're
And it's
challenging each
helpful.
other doesn't mean we need to be jerks either, right? We can do it in a positive way. That to be honest, it's very easy to pat someone on the head and say you're doing a good job. It's very hard to tell someone what they may be doing wrong, right?
Yeah.
And that's why the best coaches typically are the ones, if you think back in your careers about good coaches or mentors that you've had, they're the ones that told you that you had something stuck in your teeth, and when no one else would tell you, right? That's really what it is, right? So be that for each other, right? Well, I'm not saying, well, you can tell each other if they have something stuck in your teeth, but you apply that mentality towards everything, you know? Oh, that comma's out of place, or that there's too much white space there, or, you know, did you check that ad group? That ad group doesn't look so good, you know? But be specific in your feedback. That's important. Don't just complain without a solution, and be specific in your feedback. I think that's one of the things he mentions in the book as well. Good. Other lessons to apply to our organization? Like, what are we gonna do differently as a result of this book?
So I think a really big section was about systems and developing systems. So I got a lot of good tips on that, because basically developing systems and using data to figure out how to solve problems, because, you know, what can be measured can be scaled and improved. So knowing how to direct your energy and expertise, stop micromanaging, empowering employees, and then become more effective and have more freedom. So all of those are the reasons to develop systems. So I think that's a good takeaway, and being able to have, like, systemize all sorts of routine tasks so that you are more efficient, and then if it needs to change, if you need to pivot, using data to point you in the right direction.
It's interesting because a lot of stress from our jobs come from running into a friction point in your day-to-day lives where you're like, we need a solution for this. If you keep seeing that, if you keep running into that roadblock over and over and over again, then you need to ask yourself, what am I doing to fix that, right? For example, if, you know, Matthias, if you're in your world, you always run into the same thing over and over again, what are you doing to fix that tomorrow, right? For me, it's the sales deck example that I was telling you about, right? The font doesn't work when I, right? So these are things that, you know, I'm calling out my own blind spot, but these are the things to Roy's point about how systems can help. Michael?
Or tell us.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
ideally be an entrepreneur, but
yeah,
also loop us in.
I'm curious to know if there are any friction points
that
exist anywhere in this organization, which there are going to be many, because we haven't ironed everything out, obviously, but if they're there, please try to remember to give me a shout, because I'm very curious about those things, and I like to try to fix them.
Good. Michael, do you want to jump in with any lessons?
Yeah, it was actually to do with exactly what Roy was saying. Yeah. Okay. So it's trying to one thing that I want to kind of build upon the processes that we've created. I know that we're nowhere near. We have probably other systems to create, formulas to create, whatever that might be. But I think that it would help for me to go over the processes, for Erica and I to go over the processes that already exist, and perhaps collaborate with those within the team to find out if there are any steps that are superfluous and can potentially be removed or replaced in order to speed things up.
Excellent. Okay, other things that we've learned that we can apply to the organization.
If I can add. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I really like the part about the mobsters, and how he uses it as an example to really, really thinking ahead, especially like for instance, like for meetings and stuff. I I have a couple of lessons, but this was the one that really struck a chord with me, because it's really the meetings, like really, what do you want the outcome of your meeting to be? How are you going to do that to make sure that you reach that outcome? How are you going to anticipate like things that may go wrong? How are you going to take care of that? So I think really truly, like, it does talk about like your next 5 moves. So like really thinking about those next moves that you need to take in order to accomplish that and make sure things run smoothly. Because I mean, I remember when I first started like at this company, I had no idea how to run a meeting, and my first meeting was not very good. So I was like, I should probably like learn how to do this. And Riaz, you gave me some pointers and like some good ideas. And I still think that I'm still a little weaker in that area. And so I think that book kind of gave me a bit of a slap in the face, and it's like, you got to do better at this. So I think it ties into that self-awareness as well, like understanding who you are, what are your weaknesses, what can you do to improve on those weaknesses. And that was the part that really struck like with that. So that's one of the main learnings and the lessons that I got from that book. And just the fact that it's mobsters, like that's just so cool. Even though I'm not Russian, but the name close enough, I thought I was Russian. So I really like the example and how it's literal life or death for them. And I think it's good to think of it in that way still as well, because they talk about later on, like with the Goliath part, like the Goliaths let their guard down and they don't realize that these people are coming to get them. So we always have to make sure that we're like paranoid and we're on guard, and we're continuing to grow. And we can do that by preparing way ahead of time and never just going, I'm comfortable now, time to lay in my pile of money and like my jacuzzi or whatever. Like we can do that, but we have to be paranoid while we do it. And those are some of like the main lessons and key takeaways that I got from that book in general. As well, just a part that I thought was interesting that I kind of remembered while we were having the discussion. And it's about the different ways to give feedback dependent on personality type. I thought that was super cool. I love being able to see how other people prefer to get feedback and how they learn, and then trying to identify which one I resonate best with, and which ones I think other people would resonate with. I think that's super cool. And I don't know what I would do with that information, but I think it's just good to have like in your back pocket, because I feel like one day it will be something super useful.
Well, in terms of how you can apply that information, it's when you like, for me, I've usually prescribed to there's a Kolb learning styles inventory called Kolb learning styles inventory, right? So based on that, you know, different people can be put into different quadrants. Now, of course, we don't want to just objectify someone as that quadrant, but to your point, if we can understand how people want to receive messages, or I think they mentioned the love languages, right? How you want to, how people want to be spoken to. Then when you're interviewing a client or talking to someone else on the team, or even talking to me, if you recognize that Riaz or whoever, you know, receives information a certain way, you can tailor your message accordingly. And I guarantee you the way that I speak to you one-on-one would be very different than the way I speak to Erica one-on-one, right? Because I know what she can handle, I know what you can handle, and I know what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. If I'm talking to Roy, it's going to be a different way, right? So you can tailor your message. It's not to say I'm selling out on who I am. I'm still fundamentally the same person, but you can almost tailor the message according to the audience, right? And this is really important in sales too, right? If you're too focused on the process when you're on a sale, you won't recognize or read the room to know maybe they don't want to go through the needs assessment, or maybe they don't want to go through the deck, or maybe they don't want to, right? Like so then you can kind of choose your adventure based on what they're feeling, right? And it's going to change the way as we grow, how we coach people, how we talk to people, how we interact, how we work with clients, how we work with each other. So it's an important point that you've mentioned there. Good. Other lessons that we will apply to our organization? Kane, did you have any that stood out?
Yeah, I don't know if it's really a lesson or more just like if you go to page 77, maybe not on yours, Riaz, but in the blue ones, there's like a worksheet almost that you could plan your day off of. Essentially like who's needed, the urgency of those calls, potential gain and loss of those calls. I don't know. It really stuck out to me, that worksheet, and just kind of implementing that.
Yeah, so this is the Solve for X worksheet. This is the one I was telling you that we rolled out in January and then it didn't go anywhere because we didn't have a good implementation adoption. So this is going to be part of our everyday. But this is about processing any issue, and we don't need to do this in the group. You can do it individually. I always run into issues when I face this problem. Right, write the issue, and you go through the different stages. Right, urgency. Why? It kind of talks about the deepest why. Who's needed, list of solutions, potential negative consequences, whose buy-in is needed, assigned responsibilities, and new protocols, right? So it's it's definitely a good sheet that maybe we should all print off 100 of them and have them at our desk so we can have it easily accessible on your iPad. Oh, you got it there? Yeah, nice. Good.
Yeah, it's just a very well organized, easy to follow sheet on how to solve your problem.
Good. Other things that we're going to apply. Any other final things that we want to apply?
I'm gonna ask more often if there's anything that I can do that can make your job easier. Just because I feel like we're still learning how we like, because everyone has their own style when it comes to how to execute certain tasks. So I think that would help me facilitate and be more efficient if I'm providing the information in a way that it's more that it's easier to work with for that person. Yeah, because I'm a task spammer, so I don't want to just spam things. So I want to be able to provide the information that you all really need if we're working together.
Yeah. And I think people like seeing the big picture as to why they're like, people want to feel like, we all want to feel needed. We all want to understand how our role plays into the bigger picture, right? And I think that's what this conversation does. Okay, good. Well, I think what we'll do is we'll do one quick around the room, and this is an exercise. I haven't done it with our group, but I want you to just use one word, just one word, okay, that captures your sentiments about the book and this meeting. Okay, just one word. And Roy, do you want to go first?
One word.
And then you can pass the baton to the next person.
Okay.
One word.
It's hard. One word is hard.
No, because it's like there's so many to choose from. I would say like I would say provocative.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like, it's not necessarily the status quo. It's sort of like pushing against it too. So I think that's my word.
I almost achieved the impossible, by the way, which is stumping you. So
yeah,
those 10-15 seconds were like the holy grail for me there. So.
No, I've been stumped many times. I'm humbled with how much I don't know. So
okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So yeah, keep challenging me. Let's go. I'll pick Khalil.
One word. I would say grounding.
Good.
Pass it to Jackie.
Sorry, what was yours again? Sorry.
Actionable.
Okay.
I'll pass it to Michael.
Gritty.
Nice. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Who do you want to pass it to?
Well, has Matthias been yet?
Yes.
Erica, car.
sorry about earlier. My word would be like awareness. It's just the main like takeaway idea from this whole session.
Okay. And I think I'm the last one, right? Yeah. Okay. So my word will be implementation. That's my word. So this was the book, Your Next 5 Moves. We had a great session today. So thank you everyone for your participation. I'm looking forward to our next session. Erica, I'm going to ask you to kindly stop recording. But before you do, if you are watching this online and you enjoyed what you heard from our group and what we're doing in terms of investing in ourselves, then maybe think about how that might impact your business by working with us, right? So check us out, sidi.io, sidi.io. Or if you want to join the team, that's another benefit, right? If you're looking to join the team, we're always hiring too. So thank you for watching. If you made it this far, Erica, you can stop recording and we will do an internal debrief.